Good day, sir. We are the group 3 and 4. For today's discussion, we will be tackling our topics entitled Approaches and Methods in Teaching Araling Panlipunan in the Intermediate Grades. Before we will start, this is our lesson quote that relates to our topic for today. History becomes boring because teachers make it boring. History becomes boring when the teacher doesn't use interactive strategy to deliver the contents in the history to the students. These interactive teaching strategies may be in the form of games, which maximizes the class participation. That's why a K-12 teacher must have these attributes.
The first attributes of a K-12 teacher is multiliterate. Teachers know how to use various technologies in teaching. Since we are living in a modern world where technology is widely used, a teacher should acknowledge the competencies and literacies in coping with the demands of the times, especially with the advent of information and communication technologies. A teacher should be multiliterate in order for him or her to be flexible and versatile in teaching. He or she can manage impromptu action through his or her advance and gain knowledge. Moreover, being able to adapt the various usage of technology means you are progressive and must utilize its efficiency to learning. As an effective multiliterate teacher, that learners should be able to enhance their reading skills, writing skills, speaking skills, and the usage of digital technologies. Since you are advanced, the teaching and learning process will be more easier and convenient.
Multi-specialist. So, teachers are not only knowledgeable in the subject area they are teaching, but in the other areas as well so that they can help learner build up what they give in a classroom and outside the school and make sense of what was learned. So, ano nga ba dapat o ano nga ba ang ibig sabihin nito? So, teacher should not focus on their knowledge about the subject they are teaching. So, hindi lang sila dapat nakabase sa mga subject na tinuturo nila. Dapat rin silang magturo ng mga ibang kaalaman na alam nila na ma-apply ng mga estudyante nila sa labas at loob ng paaralan. Halimbawa, way back when we are in elementary, di ba tinuturuan tayo ng mga guro natin na magtanim? Di ba when we are in elementary, may gardening tayo. When we have free time, nag-garden tayo. Tinuturuan nila tayo kung paano magdig ng soil, paano magtanim, paano ang tamang sukat ng tubig, di ba? In that way, natutunan ng mga bata. So, ma-apply nila ito, natutunan nila sa labas. Like, sa bahay nila, dahil natuto silang paano magtanim, pwede silang makakatulong sa kanilang magulang. So, in that simple way, natutunan ng mga estudyante yon. Sa loob naman ng paaralan, pwedeng magturo si teacher ng values. In that simple way, yung mga estudyante niya matututo sa paano ba nga ba ang tamang asal. So, hindi lang si teacher nakafocus sa mga subject niya, kundi knowledgeable din si teacher sa mga values na dapat matutunan ng estudyante at mai-apply ito sa loob at labas ng paaralan. So, si teacher, hindi lang dapat siya nakafocus sa subject na tinuturo niya sa loob ng paaralan. Pwede rin siyang knowledgeable sa mga bagay na alam niyang matutunan ng estudyante niya sa loob at labas ng paaralan.
So let's move to the third and one of the attributes of K-12 teacher, which is the multi-skill. So the teacher must be skillful not just only in teaching but also in facilitating, organizing groups and activities. In short, teacher must be flexible. He or she doesn't need to be talented or gifted, yet they must manifest the ability of being strategic in doing the task that has been assigned to them, such as the following: organizing groups, activities, or even events, and so on.
The number 4 attributes of K-12 teacher is self-directed. What is self-directed? Self-directed is teachers must know how to initiate action and bring to fruition the learner goals and educational goals of the country. So what is self-directed? We all know that teachers is not quite easy, yet we must know the readiness of our students. We must play a key role in order to smoothen the transition in order to reach the learner goals. That is self-directed. We must give example of this is we must give an activity that is suit for their goals.
There are two types of strategies according to scope, and these are individualized and group instruction. Individualized instruction, it is a method of instruction in which there is one-to-one teaching and self-paced learning based. When we say paced, It is a step a learner can take in order for them to boost their own knowledge, not just their knowledge, but also the way they interpret the concept. They dare to learn by themselves, but with the guidance of the teacher also. For the group instruction, it is a method of instruction, but this time, it gets to work together in groups. When we say work together, there are interaction and collaboration with the other peers. This instruction is a better way to help the students to socialize with others. Examples are role-playing, group reporting, and think, pair, and share.
Types of strategies according to learning modalities. There are 4 types of learning modalities: the visual, auditory, tactile, and kinesthetic. For visual learners, they are great with visual presentations and they are great at learning through images. So for visual learners, they use their eyes. For auditory learners, they do well learning through listening to music or stories, but they struggle with silence. So for auditory learners, they use their ears. For kinesthetic learners, they like to learn things when they are physical. So for kinesthetic learners, they use their whole body. And lastly, for tactile learners, they understand best when they can physically touch them. So for tactile learners, they use only their hands. When incorporating strategies with learning modalities, we can use these specific activities or tasks for our learners. So for visual learners, we can let them watch demonstrations or see graphs and images, and we can also let them visual note-taking, and we can also let them do graphic organizers for their notes. And for auditory learners, we can let them listen to stories or let them have a pair to talk or to have a conversation with them. And for tactile learners, we can let them touch or move, build, or manipulate objects. And we can also let them simultaneously doodle while listening. And lastly, for kinesthetic learners, we can let them learn by using interpretive dance, or we can also associate our lessons with sports or role play and let them move around their learning environment.
So to continue the discussion, let's proceed to the methods and techniques in teaching Araling Panlipunan. First is the constructivist approach. Using varied learning activities to cater the students' multiple intelligence and learning styles, students come to school with entry knowledge and skills. So, in this approach, students learn best when engaged into learning experiences. So, for your information, knowledge cannot be directly imparted to students. So, the goal of this teaching is to provide experiences that facilitate students to construct their own knowledge. Like for example, the teacher gave a problem in which students will measure the length of a flower. But instead of giving them a ruler as a tool to measure the length of a flower, the teacher allows the student to reflect and construct their own method in measuring the length of the flower.
Collaborative learning. Collaborative learning is the educational approach of using groups to enhance learning through working together. So in short, collaborative is learning with peers. So what are the examples of collaborative learning? Yes, very good. Group activities like brainstorming, think, pair, share, and anything that is group activities. So collaborative learning is very important in the classroom. Why? Because learning collaboratively helps students. As a future teacher, we need to provide activities that give students the opportunity to work and collaborate together to learn and grow from each other. So dapat ay hindi lang tayo magbibigay ng mga individual na aktibidad sa kanila, kundi bigyan din natin sila ng mga oportunidad na makipag-interact sa kanilang mga kaklase upang matuto sila sama-sama. Dahil meron ding mga benepisyo ang collaborative learning, like boosting your confidence and your self-esteem as well. Building your relationship with your classmates and develop your skills in oral communication.
Next is experiential and contextualized learning. It begins in experience and it ends with experience. So it's basically a cycle. It's a process of learning by doing. by engaging students in hands-on experience and reflection. It actively involves the learner in the learning process. It basically applies content and context, and all the learning is applied knowledge. When the students participate in experiential education, they gain a better understanding of the course material. They will have a broader view of the world and an appreciation of community. Experiential and contextualized learning leads to a high retention process. This explains why student-centered approach is effective. There are 5 phases of experiential learning cycle. These are the experience, publishing, processing, generalizing, and applying phase. The first one is the experience itself. This can be a scheduled activity, current event, or an expected discussion. The experience is the thing that happens. Second phase is the publishing. Participants reflect on their personal journey through that experience. In the publishing phase, participants are only reflecting on themselves. Third phase is the processing phase. Participants reflect on the observation that other participants who share the experience had. This is the chance for the participants to consider what happened in. Fourth is the generalizing phase. Participants think about other times where they had similar feelings or observations. During this phase, participants are stretched to think about the experience. They work to relate to it and to the other aspects of their life. Fifth is the applying phase. Participants think about things they learned from the experience. A successful application has participants considered how they can apply and what they learned. Ideally, as a result of the experience, participants will have more successful outcome in the future. And that are the phases of experiential learning cycle.
So, good afternoon everyone. Now, let's proceed to thematic method. Learning revolves around a theme or choosing a specific topic, or yung isang teacher is nakabase na sa isang topic depende sa grade level. So, the K-12 Curriculum Guide for Araling Panlipunan enumerates the following themes across the grades. So, for grade 1, for example for grade 1, tao, lipunan, at kapaligiran. So, dito sinasabi na each theme should be accompanied by the focus questions. So, ano nga ba yung mga questions na pwede nating itanong sa isang estudyante para mapalawak yung theme? So, for example, sa grade 1, tao. Tao yung tema natin. So, pwede nating itanong, ano nga ba yung characteristics na meron ng isang tao? Paano natin ilalarawan ang isang tao? Same with kapaligiran at lipunan. Ano nga ba yung kapaligiran? Ano nga ba yung lipunan? At sino-sino nga ba yung nasa kapaligiran at lipunan? And also, same with the other team, from grade 2 to grade 7. Same lang din ang process kung saan yung focus question ang nagde-determine or nagpapaintindi sa isang estudyante kung ano nga ba yung pinag-aaralan or yung pinakaangkop na team para sa kanila. So, mapapansin natin from simple to complex yung mga tema. So, habang tumataas yung level ng grade ng isang estudyante, mas nagiging complex yung pinag-aaralan nila.
Hello everyone, and now I'm going to discuss about the conceptual approach. But first, what is really the conceptual approach? Conceptual approach, it is choosing and defining content of a certain discipline to be taught through the use of a big and pervasive ideas. Ito'y nagsasangkot ng mga mag-aaral na nakikibahagi sa mga dekalidad na karanasan batay sa mga pangunahing konsepto at pangunahing ideya sa halip na gumamit ng mas tradisyonal na pamaraan ng pagtututok sa pag-aaral sa mga paksa. The conceptual approach had also a benefits rather. So the benefits of it are learn how to examine concept from numbers of perspectives, learn how to sort out relevant information, extends their knowledge of a concept by classifying more than one example of the concept. Students go beyond merely associating a key term of a definition. And lastly, concept is learned more thoroughly and retention is improved. So, what is really the conceptual approach? It is when the teachers decides lessons that focus on a concept rather than individual tasks. She is teaching conceptually. So, the concept learning, kung saan ito ang mas mabisang paraan kung saan mas madaling matuto ang mga estudyante, kumbaga ito ang mas pinakakondisyon na ginagamit.
So the sixth methods and techniques of teaching Araling Panlipunan is integrative approach. Teaching and learning are more meaningful and further enriched if the lesson is connected to the other discipline or what we call interdisciplinary and is connected to real life experiences or what we call transdisciplinary. The integrative approach helps our pupils to get a unified view of reality and enhances their capability to acquire real-life skills. So there is integration when our pupils can be able to connect what they're learning in one subject area to a related content in another subject area. In integrative approach, we have the try question. The first one is what happened. The second one is why did it happen or the reasons. The third one is what are possible consequences or the outcomes or result. In integrative approach, we have to consider these 5. The first one is moral dilemma method. In our module, we have seen here that moral dilemma method is a person is thrown between 2 actions. And moral dilemma is our situation in which the decision maker must consider 2 or more moral values or duties but can only honor one of them. The second one is lesson indigenization. In our module, explaining using thought, patterns, and materials of indigenous communities. And one of the example of indigenization in education could include the inclusion of indigenous readings, adoption of indigenous learning approaches in the classroom. And the third one is using varied activities. So as we know, our students are diverse, so we have to consider using varied activities for us to cater or to provide our students multiple intelligences and learning style in order for us to provide their needs. The fourth one is survey or interview. So we have to consider conducting a survey or an interview. And the last but not the least is service learning. So the purpose of service learning is to develop critical thinking skills.
I'm going to discuss about the sample use of approaches and strategies in specific. This 3-question approach by Gary Golson, he conduct the possible lesson application which is pangyayari sa kasaysayan o araling kontemporaryo. Ang mga hakbang sa pagsasagawa ay ginagamitan lamang ng 3 tanong. Una, anong nangyari? Kalawa, bakit ito nangyari? Ikatatlo, ano ang kinahihinatnan nito? This 3-question approach to help students in conflict to hear each other and when appropriate, find solution to the problem.
In presenting a certain situation or an issue, it is helpful to use images and videos in order for the students to become observant and they will find what is the root and what would be the possible solution. And we know that students are diverse, they came up with such different opinions or thoughts towards an issue. They think critical on what would be the possible solution of a certain situation or problem.
Ang pangalawa ay ang pagtukoy sa isyu. Isa sa mabisang paraan sa pagtukoy sa isyu ay ang pamprosesong paraan. Pamprosesong tanong. So, sa mga pamprosesong tanong ay may mga paraan upang malaman ang iyong sagot o malaman ang katotohanan at mabigyan ng solusyon.
Pag-aasa ng kwento o anumang artikulo at dati na rin ang panunood ng video clip. Ang dalawang ito ay nakakatulong upang meron tayong makitang impormasyon at pagbabatayan. Dito, makikita natin kung ano ang sanhi at epekto ng isang issue. Malalaman natin kung paano ito mariresolba. Kaya naman, malaking tulong ang mga ito sa pagsusuri ng isang issue.
Yung aplikasyon sa social analysis model ni James Shavers ay ang pagtatapos. Sa pagtatapos, naritong gabay na tanong. Dito nakapaloob ang mga tanong na maaaring may tanong na dapat related sa topic or tinatalakay mo na issue o isyung panlipunan. Halimbawa dito na isyung panlipunan o social studies issue is ang pandemic. Sa pandemic, maaari mong itanong kung bakit ito nangyari at ano ang nangyari. Ito ay mga gabay na tanong. And these strategies or approaches can be used in locally or globally. Like I said earlier, ang magandang halimbawa dito ay ang pandemic. Since lahat tayo naapektuhan ng pandemic, then, pwede siya globally. At pwede mong itanong kung ano nga ang nangyari at bakit ito nangyari.
So next is letter C, Cause and Effect Diagram by Susan Barnes. First is pagbabasa ng teksto. Second, pagsagot ng Cause and Effect Diagram. Third, pagtalakay. So we are all familiar with the Cause and Effect Diagram, right? Okay, so we have here the diagram showing the pangyayari, sanhi, and bunga. So for example, atong topic is climate change. So here in pangyayari, you're going to write here kung unsay nahitabo all in all during sa climate change. And then dili dayon sa sanhi, you're going to write here kung unsay hinungdan nganong naay climate change. And also sa bunga, you're going to write here kung unsay epekto or impacts sa climate change sa mga tao, all in all.
Ang moral dilemma model ni Barry K. Bayer. Sa salitang moral, ito ay tumutukoy sa tama o maling pag-uugali ng isang tao. Ang moral dilemma model ni Barry K. Bayer, ito ay tumutukoy sa pagpili sa pagitan ng dalawang bagay o kaya paglutas ng mahirap na suliranin o sitwasyon. At may 5 itong hakbang. Una, paglalahad ng dilema o ang pagbabahagi sa suliranin na parehong di kasiya-siya. 2, paglikha ng division ng action. Ito ay paglikha at paghati ng mga dilema sa mga kaklase mo. 3, ang pagtatalakay sa mga kagrupo. Ito ang pagtatalakay sa mga kagrupo mo. At 4, ang pagtatalakay sa mga kaklase. Ito ang pagtatalakay sa buong kaklase. At ang 5, ito ang pagtatapos.
Think, Pair, and Share by Frank Lyman. Number 1. Think. The teacher provokes students' thinking with a question, prompt observation, and the student will have a few moments to think. Sa ganito na paraan, tatanong ng guro ang mga mag-aaral ng isang tanong upang mapukaw ang kanilang pag-iisip. Ang mga mag-aaral ay magkakaroon ng ilang oras upang mag-isip tungkol sa tanong at sagot nito.
So, peer. For you, what is peer? Okay, nice. So, for me, peer is all about a collaboration or brainstorming to your classmate, peer, or class buddies. So, it's all about ang peer is bitang mag-gain mo duwa sa mga knowledge ninyo about the topic. Then, kung sa ito pinaka-the best na answer is mutong inyong ihatag sa inyong teacher.
Okay, to continue, number 3 is sharing. After student talk in pair for a few moments, the teacher called for pairs to share their thinking with the rest of the class. Ang sharing ay paraan kung saan magbabahagi ang mga estudyante kung ano ang kaalaman na natutunan nila sa buong talakayan. As a future teacher, ang sharing ay isang mahalagang paraan upang malaman natin kung nakikinig ba sila at kung meron ba silang natutunan.
And the next is paggamit ng iba't ibang uri ng graphic organizer. So, graphic organizer is a visual and graphic representation of relationships among ideas and concepts. It helps students process information they've gathered and organize their ideas. It should follow 1-4 patterns of knowledge: hierarchical, conceptual, sequential, and cyclical. So, with the aid of graphic organizer, you can visualize your thoughts or ideas. It shows the relationships and connection between concepts and so on. Also, with the use of graphic organizer, concepts can be arranged in a way that is simple to understand and internalize.
Why we use graphic organizer? We use graphic organizer because it makes the learning and teaching rewarding. Graphic organizer is visually appealing that represents organized ideas and information. It helps the students to connect their prior knowledge to the new information. And one of the example of that is the KWL graphic organizer. Did you know what is that? It is the what I know, what I want to know, and what I learned graphic organizer. It helps the students to activate their prior knowledge and to organize information before, during, and after the discussion. Next, it integrates the language and thinking in an organized format, because it allows the students to focus on a concrete information and to think and dig deeper about the connection, patterns, and the relationships of the concept in a graphic organizer. Next, it increases the comprehension and the retention of the students. First, it increases comprehension because the students focus in a categorized way, which makes the learnings or concepts simple and understandable. Next is, it increases their retention because, as we observe, EP subject is very wordy subject. That is why, with the help of graphic organizer, it will help the students to highlight the most important information. And lastly, it helps the students engage in the mid of the higher level of thinking along Bloom's taxonomy. And our module refers to the old Bloom's taxonomy, which is the application, analysis, evaluation, and synthesis.